Trevor Blodgett, senior.
Robert Tong, senior.
My name is Cole Newlove. I'm a junior.
My name is Brian Edmond, and I'm also a senior.
I'm Timothy Dimmitt, and I'm a senior as well.
I'm Isaac Cortez, and I'm a junior.
I'm Maddie Paul, and I'm a senior.
I'm Callista Morrison, and I'm a senior.
And I'm Jory Fawcett, and I'm a senior.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Going to call the meeting to order then, a regular monthly meeting for December, and roll call vote, please.
Mr. Perez?
Here.
Dr. Hoyda? Here. Dr. Gase? Here. Dr. McBride? Mr. Widman?
Here. And now first, motion to adopt the agenda as I believe going to be amended.
Yes, we have an addendum, and that is to the consent agenda, item 7.07, employment. We are adding supplemental contracts for pep band. Also, there is a correction on page 4 of the regular agenda, and that is also on the consent agenda under item 7.07. As I said, page 4 under supplemental contracts. Mr. McQuistion for track should be 100%, not 50%.
Okay, the consent agenda, or actually the agenda as amended, can I have a motion to approve that? So move McBride, a second. Second, Mr. Woodman. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Dr. McBride? Yes. Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. Hoyda? Yes. Mr. Perez?
Yes. And now we have Melissa Malott, Tricia Ike, and Ms. Molly Depew to give us a presentation on the ROCKS program.
Hello. My name is Miss Ite, and I am a school counselor at Kraut and Noble. So we would like to thank you for having us here to give you a little more information about the wonderful program we have the pleasure of delivering to many Tiffin City Schools girls. ROCKS, which stands for Ruling Our Experiences, is a program that was developed by Dr. Lisa Hinkleman after she completed a nationwide survey of about 11,000 girls. One startling statistic that pushed her forward in developing ROCKS was the fact that girls' confidence is at a healthy level until they reach 5th grade, at which time it nosedives and continues to do so until it plateaus in 9th grade. Other startling statistics that were of concern to her were 46% of girls believed they are not smart enough for their dream career. 1 in 3 girls refused to take leadership positions because they did not want to appear bossy. 1 in 2 girls would not speak their mind. Many of these feelings are complicated by social media and technology, so Dr. Lisa Hinkleman set out to teach girls skills such as conflict resolution, positive communication skills, having healthy relationships with others, boundary setting, self-defense, mindfulness, changing the culture of body image, beauty and intelligence, open career options, and leadership skills. As trained facilitators, we also have coaches, which are accessible to ask questions. They're experienced ROCKS facilitators. During this current pandemic of COVID, Dr. Hinkleman again rallied her research team and surveyed girls, finding that 79% of girls are reporting that they feel more lonely or isolated than they have before. 1 in 4 girls are sad or depressed up to 4 or more days a week. 37% of their relationships are harder than they were before the pandemic. Now more than ever, our girls need our support, and thanks to the Tiffin City Schools District, we are working to provide them with this support. Here are some current statistics for our girls in Tiffin City Schools. In 2018-2019, we had 23 girls that went through the ROCKS program. We all began groups in 2019-2020, but because of COVID, have had to continue with the same group of girls this year to get through all of the lessons and material. Currently, for the 2019-20 and 2021 school year, we have 58 girls going through the program, 2 of which are Tornado Academy. We have 12 girls that are in Tornado Academy that we have not had any contact back with. We've had 4 withdraw to another school and 2 that did not complete the program. Our long-term goal is to have every girl go through ROCKS at the ROCKS program at some point before their graduation. As you will see in the upcoming portion of the presentation, we have done a lot of things to encourage strong, confident, and empowered girls. So now Melissa Malott will share some of the things we do in ROCKS.
Thanks, Ms. Ait. Yes, I am Melissa Malott, one of the school counselors here at the middle school. And we're going to show you a little video here. Cooper, come here. This is my sidekick, Cooper. We're going to show you a little video here. And the pictures go pretty quickly, so I just kind of want to explain a little bit about what you're going to see as you watch the video. At the beginning of the video, we do, there's a lot of team building at the beginning of ROCKS. ROCKS is a great believer in we need to build a sense of community and a sense of family within these girls because they're going to be together for quite some time. So a strong foundation is definitely needed within the program. After a little bit in the video, you will see that we completed a project right before Thanksgiving break, the Wednesday before. With all of our current girls, we're given the opportunity to come in and do a project with Jen Burns, who is from Rustic Flair and Brush. And they created vision boards, which I have one right there, that the girls all created this all on their own with help from all of us, which they got to take home and they can now have in their rooms or wherever they choose to have their visions, their goals, their dreams. They can change it how they choose as they go throughout Tiffin City Schools. So, Mr. Weber, would you like to?
Thank you for coming in and speaking with us. It was really nice to hear somebody's story.
One thing I want to mention, any of the pictures that you saw up there where girls were not in masks, those were pre-COVID. So those were taken last year and previous years. Next up will be Miss Molly.
Hello, I'm Molly Depew. I'm a school psychologist at the preschool and the high school. And one of the components of ROCKS is a guest speaker. And so I had a guest speaker come in. I had Lynn Detterman, the then CEO and president of Mercy Hospital, come in and speak to my girls about her journey, how her career path had ebbed and flowed and changed. It wasn't what she always expected, and the challenges she faced as a woman. I was able to get her in to speak just before our COVID shutdown, thankfully. So we had to be creative in how we thanked her for her time. So we created a video to do so.
for coming in and speaking with us. It was really nice to hear somebody's story in the community. Thanks again.
Thank you for being the guest speaker for me.
Hi, I really wanted to just thank you for talking to our Rocks group and coming in and talking about how you have gone through so many different life paths and ended up in a career choice that you didn't necessarily expect that you were going to be in. It really shows that just because you step on one path doesn't mean you can go on your own or off onto another, and that really is inspiring. And I just wanted to thank you for that, and thank you for coming in and talking to us.
Hi, this is Selena Fleck, sophomore from Rocks, and I wanted to say thank you for coming and speaking before this whole thing happened. It was inspiring to hear your story, and it was nice to hear from someone else who's like experienced unfairness and things like that. So thank you.
Hi, this is Carly Marie, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and talking to us. I know we all really appreciated having a strong female role model come in and talk to all of us, so thank you.
Okay, now we have a few girls who have been through the Rocks program or have started the Rocks program or are in different stages of the Rocks program, just to say a word or two about what it means to them, their favorite pieces.
Hi, my name is Madison McBride, and the Rocks experience is different for every girl, but for me, the Rocks experience was a safe place. It was a place where girls could be their authentic selves from the very objectifying world, away from a world where people are judged based on the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, and their gender. In Rocks, we learned many things from defense, consent, and being more accepting of other people. As a woman, this experience is something I think that we should all go through. From the things you learn in the group that you're with, it's an amazing experience. Coming out of Rocks, I had new friends and skills, and if I had a chance, I'd do it all again. Thanks.
I'm Vanessa. I'm in 8th grade. One of my favorite things we do was called the chocolate fountain. We had to teamwork actually to get across the room.
Hi, I'm Amelia Miller, and I'm in 6th grade. And I started Rocks last year, and we didn't get to finish it because of COVID. And I was really sad because Rocks was an important thing that I could do, and it was with a team. And the way that the people that made it, they made it so that it was fun and we would enjoy being there. And so I really miss it since we've stopped doing it. And I really hope that we can do that again sometime soon.
Good evening. My name is Mia Blues, and I am a current TMS 8th grader. When I started Rocks, I was in 7th grade, but due to Corona, I was not able to finish it. Rocks meant to me many different things. I always had a support group that I could talk to, and there were always girls helping girls rather than having no one. And it was just really important to me that I was able to talk about what was going on and that I was able to have people there to help me through it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And after that presentation then, Mr. Grubbs, acknowledgement of any guests we have?
Well, obviously, we had a lot of guests, and we appreciate we appreciate the choir coming in and singing for us prior to the board meeting, and obviously thank the Rocks girls and our advisors for the Rocks program. That's a great program for our girls, and it does a lot for them, and so we're just very thankful we have it. Then we had a few parents that I think they were here for the Rocks girls, but we still have left with us Melanie Sutter and Chris Allen. And I think that's really about all of our actual guests at this point. I guess Mr. Tristler joined us tonight, and Amy Wood, I forgot about them joining us, and Michelle Tuitt is back here, so there were quite a few here tonight.
It was really nice seeing the Rocks program, because I know we discussed it as a board, but it's nice to see it actually with the students and see how they're advancing and getting from it and stuff, to see a program that really works. So.
With a kid who went through the program, that it was amazing, and the things that they discussed and the lessons that she got in that are still present. She's still close with the girls she went through it with, and the conversations that we had from it were just exceptional. So it's something that I am still really thankful that the school invested in the girls' experiences.
Well, and Dr. McBride, I have a 6th grader, and to see the change, and to me it's just amazing the pressure that those girls are under that young. And I have a boy too, and it's a different world for them, and the expectations and what they have, the stereotypes that are forced on them right away. So go to reports then, and Dr. Gase, you're first up with the Business Advisory Council.
Well, Business Advisory is due to meet on Thursday morning. In preparation for that, Amy Wood and Jim Grubbs and I met last week to discuss the upcoming merging of the NCO ESC Board, Business Advisory Council, and Tiffin City. And along that line, we reviewed the state requirements for business advisory councils, in that businesses would advise districts on the economy and employment opportunities, and also to advocate for employment skills and to aid and support relationships. Toward that end, we talked about some of the things that Tiffin City has done over the last several years, including the REACH program in our elementary schools, 4 through 6. We have our BRAG program. We've introduced Naviance. We have work-based learning led by Stacy Geiger and Stacy Basinger. Thank you. And so we're going to incorporate a lot of the things that we've been doing and take up some of the things that the ESC's cooperating districts are doing. And amongst those districts are Fostoria City Schools, Hopewell Loudon, Mohawk, New Riggle, Old Fort, Seneca East, Mount Gilead, Shelby, Ontario, Cary, and Buckeye Central. And we'll be bringing some of the businesses that they had as on their advisory council, including Arnold Machinery and Ropey Rubber, and and of course the ones that we have. And then we're going to look out, try to work to obtain involvement with more industry in and around Seneca County. I think all in all, it's going to be a win-win for everybody, students and businesses, and especially towards employment and the economy. I asked Amy to be here tonight in case she wanted to say something else. Do you have anything else to add, Amy? Okay. I didn't hear that.
basically said, we're looking forward to the next 6 months of onboarding with the other organizations and becoming, I think, at the end, a stronger and overall a larger region in providing more opportunities for students. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about, providing more opportunities and becoming more regional versus just local. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
And just to repeat something I brought up last meeting, this will not eliminate the things that have begun at Tiffin City Schools in our Business Advisory Council. We'll still be doing things based upon the involvement that we've had in Tiffin City and some of the things that Pat Smith has started, Invention Camp, and some of the things that she's been very passionate about will continue. And we're going to ask her to continue leading those areas where she has been a pivotal part. So any questions about the merging? We look for, like Amy said, 6 months. The schedules, the ESC's Board Business Advisor is going to come, we're going to change their times and come to our meeting times. Will be Thursday mornings at 8 o'clock. That's the third Thursday at 8 o'clock, presently on Zoom. Thank you.
No, thank you for all the work you've been doing. We got some really good members on that committee, and thank you, Ms. Wood. Is the Finance Committee, and I would report that we met last Tuesday, basically went over the numbers again, and we are prepared to present a couple options to the board tonight. I think in speaking to the treasurer, and to Mr. Grubb, we can pass both a levy tonight and one calling for an income tax, and then next month decide, which one we want to go with. I think that'll offer us the opportunity to keep our options open and to allow for more input from the community. We did get the Finance Committee, ideas on which levies we're looking at. Either way, it's going to be difficult, but those will be on the items on your agenda tonight. Then that kind of morphs into the legislative report. Last meeting, we were hopeful. We talked about the fair funding bill, or formerly known as the Cupp-Patterson bill. And first, I'd like to give kudos to Representative, soon-to-be Senator Reinecke. He did vote for the bill. They voted on the Friday, I believe, before last week. And the House really came through, and I thank him for the efforts that he had. Unfortunately, then the Senate Finance Committee did not take it up on their agenda for committee meetings, and so it's highly unlikely that it will pass this session. We understood that it was going to be phased in over 6 years, so it did not offer immediate relief. I think we just hope that the impetus is still there. Some of the members that were pushing it are term limited out, but I hope people pick up the ball and run with it again. It's something that has to be addressed, and I think it's something that would benefit our district. There was also another bill that got amended. I believe it was House Bill 38, and I could be wrong on that. But basically, it's they added in an amendment to allow for challenges on evaluations, again, even though you may have challenged it for the next 3 years based on COVID. And basically, in watching the committee meetings, it's a hotel bailout option, that hotels are seeking this relief. It could affect us adversely in terms of assessments and in other districts. And in watching the conversations, it didn't look like they gave us much credence in terms of our needs, and basically said this has to be something to be done. So that's something we'll probably have to deal with. I don't think we'll be affected as much as other districts, but again, it's something we're being asked to help out another industry. So, and that's where we're at in terms of the legislative liaison report and the Finance Committee. And then I would turn it over to Mr. Grubbs and Ms. Perry in terms of the Levy Committee.
Here over the last few weeks and really over the last couple months, looking at numbers the best we can, taking input from staff and board and finance committees on where we need to be. At the end of the day, the proposals that you'll see in front of us are going to be options that we're going to ask that we take to the county auditor and also send to the state. And in January, we'll bring back then for the board to actually make a decision which one will go on the ballot. Mrs. Perry, do you want to talk about each one of these scenarios?
Yeah, I'll start with everything that I've given you tonight. The first thing that you have are the motions that will be needed in order to declare a necessity to levy a tax. So you have some different options. There are the property tax motion. We have the language for a 6.9 mil continuing levy. And then if you want to request something else, a different amount of millage, then you can just fill in the blanks. And also, if you would like to do a different term, which the options are 1 to 5 years or the continuing period of time. On a property tax, for the traditional type, the millage is actually stated rather than the dollar amount that you're trying to raise. The only time that you would do that is if you were running an emergency levy. This would be the traditional type. On that same sheet, there is also the language to request an income tax. So we have what a 1% earned continuing income tax would need to say. And that would be to raise the additional sum of $3,500,000 annually for a continuing period of time based on earned income only. The other options would be any other dollar amount that we would like to raise for any number of years or a continuing period of time, and then either on all income that any taxpayer has in the state of Ohio, or the earned income only. All income would include interest and dividends, wages, of course, and also pensions and retirement income, where the earned income would only include the wages. So you have those options, and we have it on the agenda later in the meeting, but we can do as many of these as we would like, and then the resolutions will be, the formal resolutions will be prepared and filed either with the county auditor for property tax or with the Ohio Department of Taxation for the income tax, and they will certify the amount of mills or the percentage and the dollar amounts that will be raised. And then in January at our regular meeting, we can decide which of those we want to proceed with to file with the Board of Elections to go on the May 4th, 2021 ballot. I also gave you, should be the next sheet that you have, is the income tax yield and equivalent millage. This was prepared by the Ohio Department of Taxation. It was updated for 2021 income estimates. So you have the traditional income base, the 0.25% increments, the annual yield, what a $40,000 income earner would pay, what the equivalent millage is based on our new valuation for 2020, which I just received today. Previously, this was based on the 2019 valuation. So our new valuation went up $20 million. So if I switch back to millage, that would raise an additional $20,000 for each mill. On the sheet, you can also see what the earned income base would yield at those same percentages. This helps when we're trying to determine, we need a certain amount of money, what income tax percentage would be required to raise that compared to how much millage would be required to raise that same amount of money. Then you also have some colored worksheets, and you've seen these before. We've done several scenarios at our past work session, also presented to Finance Committee. The first one that you have is 6.9 mils, And if you look over in column A on lines 7 and 8, that's where I'm putting in either the millage or the income tax rate to calculate the worksheet. So the first one is 6.9 mils, as I said. That will raise almost $2.9 million per year. It'll be fully collected starting in 2023, and it will not correct deficit spending each year, but it will correct our adjusted ending balances. And also, it will get our reserved days to 90 in most cases, which is our goal. The only other thing I should mention is that this does include expenditure adjustments or budget reductions of $1 million each year. This is the basically the same scenario as what we presented a month ago in 7.25 mils, but because our valuation went up, we will only need about 6.9 mils to raise about the same amount of money. So we'll get more in the collection. The homeowner will not pay anymore. The next scenario is no millage, a 3/4% traditional based income tax, which would be about $3.1 million annually. It'll start to fully collect in 2024. It'll start to phase in 2022. And it basically is the closest equivalent to the 6.9 mils. That also includes $1 million in expenditure reductions per year. And then you can also see the third and final scenario is a 1% income tax based on earned income only. And that, let's see, a 3/4% would not raise enough to be equivalent. So we bump it up to 1, and that would be $3.5 million annually. And that would also include $1 million in expenditure reductions per year. And then we had talked about, you know, area comparisons to millage and income tax in other districts, similar districts, statewide. So I ran a district profile report. These are provided by the Ohio Department of Education. The last one that was available was from fiscal year 2019. So you have that, and it shows Tiffin City's data, similar districts, and statewide averages. So I highlighted the effective class 1 millage, and they include JVS mills. But it's the same comparison in every district. So you can see across the board that's pretty even. Our effective millage was 30.25, similar districts 31.05, and statewide average 30.35. So as far as effective millage goes, we're pretty even. But local tax efforts, since we don't have an income tax, we are much lower than similar districts and the statewide average. The statewide average is going to be an index of 1, and then everyone else is compared to that. We are much lower at 0.8645. Similar districts are just a little bit over 1. Total expenditures per pupil, I also highlighted that. The statewide average is $12,400. Similar districts, $10,800. Tiffin City Schools, $9,700. So we're much lower there. The next sheet shows you who the similar districts are that the state compared us to. And there are 20 of them. Of those 20, 4 of them have an income tax. And then I also gave you a list of 47 school districts, including us, and the local tax effort determined by the state. So that would include all taxes, millage and income tax. So this is for every school district in the surrounding counties and the SBC conference, just the Lake Division. And you can see out of 47 schools ranked highest to lowest, that we come in with a rank of 41 with that 0.8645 state index for local tax effort. That's just for your information. And then I also did a summary of several averages for effective residential millage for all of these different groups. Similar districts statewide, surrounding counties, Seneca County only, the city schools in the surrounding counties, and the SBC Lake schools. I did that for total local tax effort, total expenditures per pupil, which districts, how many districts have an income tax, their average rate, and whether it's traditional base or earned income base. So I think this information will be very helpful during a levy campaign to communicate this with the public. So that's all of the information that I provided tonight so that we can make a decision and support that.
Mr. Grubbs and Ms. Perry, do you guys want to answer questions now or wait till your part in the agenda when we discuss the two resolutions? I mean, because I think you highlighted, first of all, I believe your recommendation is 6.9, I think, in terms of the mill levy, that amount. But it was also, I think, including $1 million in cuts that you foresaw, correct?
Yes, all three of these scenarios basically lay out $1 million in cuts that would have to be made.
And then,
and if I could just add that, you know, the cuts don't need to be part of the resolution tonight.
right. But I think that's what people have to understand. Even with these amounts, we're still having to make cuts. I think the other levy amounts were just too high. And I think voters, I think as we said before, probably want us to do something as well. And then in terms of the earned income tax, can you explain who would be paying that?
It would be anyone that's working and earning wages. It would not be retirees who are not working. Pensions would not be taxed. Interest would not be taxed. Dividends, any retirement income would not be taxed. Only working wages.
Okay, any questions for those two while we're here?
Sharon, I got a question on the local tax effort paper that you passed out, or that you sent us. So it's showing Tiffin at 30.25. So if we would add the 6.9, we would add 6.9 to that 30.25, and we'd move up on the scale there. Is that how you would take a look at that, or?
Yeah, that's what would happen basically the first year of that levy. And then as valuation, if valuation increases every year, which it did this past year, then that 6.9 mils would be rolled back to raise the same amount of money. So that's what the effective is what's really being taxed, not what was originally passed. So that number's always changing for every district.
So where would we, so we're at 41 now, where would we go with the 6.9?
I'm not sure how it would change our index.
Okay.
So if you look at that, I have a class 1 effective millage column also on there, but you can see it doesn't necessarily line up with the local tax effort because there's so many districts in there that have the income tax.
Okay.
So the local tax effort puts the two together.
And Sharon, looking at that same document, is that right, that there's only like one district that pays less per pupil than we do? That we're Gibsonburg, Macomb,
Yes, in all of the
Lakota,
surrounding counties, yes.
New Regal spend more per student than we do, and we have we have the city here?
Yeah, well, this was as of, yes, this was as of fiscal year 2019. Last school year has not been released yet.
Sharon, when I was reading the Finance Committee minutes, it talked about some discussions. Can you share more specifically any of the things that were coming up with the committee members and some of their concerns? Or when I read the minutes, it looked like not everybody was in agreement, so just share a little bit about what
As
some of
far
the
as
concerns
the
are.
levy goes?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and Mr. Grubbs, you can help me remember all of those conversations. But I think that some of them worried about the complexities of the income tax, understanding it, the education, the filing for it every year, that it comes out of your paycheck. Some people saw that as an advantage, some saw it as a disadvantage. Property tax, I think one of the largest concerns was that everyone just received their new valuation. So, and valuations went up, and it's hard to understand that most of our millage is going to be rolled back, even though, valuations went up, so the millage is going to be rolled back. But there is a small portion of inside millage that homeowners will pay an increase on. So they will see an increase. So it's difficult to understand that we're not going to get the full value of the district's valuation increase. So I think just the complexities of both taxes and the need to make sure that we educate the public as much as possible. Mr. Grubbs, would you add anything?
Yeah, I was getting ready to pull up a document that I created that did some comparisons with, if you had a 6.9 mil levy on your property value, and if you were earner of a typical, I would say a professional, person that has to maybe a spouse and both people in the home are working. For example, the one I used, if the annual earned combined income for a family would be $100,000. Those folks with the 3/4% income tax is going to pay $750 in taxes, where a 1% income, they're going to pay $1,000. That same family would have to own a home valued at $240,000 and have a 12 mil levy passed to get to that same amount of money. So to tell, let's say, an educator whose spouse, they both work in our school district, that, by the way, you're going to pay $1,000 in income tax versus 6.9 mil levy on your $200,000 home you live in, it's $483, will be a tough sell. And so I think, educating people on the difference on those two is going to be a challenge for us, no matter which one we choose. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure people are educated and so they can make a good decision.
Right. In the end, the school district is looking to raise basically the same amount of money. So it shifts the burden on who's going to pay that for the district.
Dr. Hoy, did you have a question? No. Okay. The other issues I think the Finance Committee wanted to know too is what exactly their role is. They provide oversight, or do they have a bigger role in terms of approving expenditures the way I've seen it, or tracking down expenditures? And I think we considered still it's oversight, and it's really the board that has to make these decisions. I know they expressed concerns about, who actually collects it, the burden that it might impose on employers, and that's why it's important to involve the city and probably TCEP to see what, those people think about it in terms of HR departments, what cost it would add to them. I think, it's traditional, it's the property levy, but I think in terms of their recommendations, I think ultimately that's why I liked having the two options, because we're the board, we're going to have to make that determination as to which one we want to go with. So, but go ahead, Dr. McBride.
So first, Sharon, I want to say thank you so much. I think this is a tremendous amount of data that is really helpful to let us see what's going on around us and how other districts are navigating. But we also keep talking about putting on numerous options that allow us to have options and then to get public input what is the plan for getting that public input to then make that decision?
I will jump in, and so once we have this information here, we do have a couple board members that are part of the levy committee. Once we pass this tonight, or hopefully pass this tonight, then we can sit down and then start really focusing in or honing in on what we do next and exactly how are we going to get that information. I think that's very critical. Obviously, I think Mr. Perez mentioned earlier about reaching out to TCEP, the mayor, et cetera, and so the chambers. And I think once we can have a meeting with everybody at the same table to discuss, what's, people's opinions of this and what direction we ought to go. I think that information can be handy to us when we come back to the board meeting in January.
And Mr. Grubbs, just to add that township trustees as well, I've already reached out to them as well.
Because I think that was a piece that came up in the finance committee, was around the transparency and having the conversations, just making sure that the flow of information and getting the input from the finance committee, the board, and the community was all there.
If there's no more questions, then we'll continue with the committee reports. Vanguard Sentinel, Mr. Woodman.
Our meeting is Thursday. So, but things are moving along very well, is the initial reports. So our board meeting will be on Thursday.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have the student representative report. Mr. Blodgett.
All right, so I'd just like to start this off with saying that I liked the presentation that Rox gave. Like, I didn't get to say anything about that, but hearing from other students, and obviously I didn't get a first-hand experience. It was really nice to see what they were actually doing, but I've only heard positive things. I think it's a really good program that we have, and I think that there's a lot of things at our school that are open to people to do, and I like the addition of Rox to that repertoire. And then as far as pertaining to this last couple of weeks, NHS and Student Council did the annual canned food drive. The proceeds go to the Salvation Army, and Mr. Mansour got to wear an elf costume, or will get to wear an elf costume. I just wanted to point that out because a little embarrassment for Mr. Mansour. The boys team the boys basketball team kicked off their season with 2 wins, and the swim team had their first meet on the 5th. And our girls team just got out of quarantine. They had a COVID incident where they had to quarantine. They are now out of that and back to practicing, which good. The wrestling team has also gotten their season going, and Brody Conley got his 100th win. So I'd just like to shout out Brody as a friend and fellow student. And the reason I mentioned all of our sports seasons starting is the fact that there was a little bit of doubt whether we would have these. And as a fall athlete, I am very glad that our winter athletes get their chance to make their season and make more memories. And the hybrid model has been in progress for a couple of weeks now, and we're making do with what we have, and that's all I have.
So Mr. Blodgett, I hate to put you on the spot, but you've been under both now, the hybrid and the remote. Any opinions on that?
I mean, obviously, I like to be in the building. I was one of the few that was fortunate enough to have the ability to learn remote. I have that ability. When I'm on Zoom, I actually learn something, but I know a lot of my peers have expressed that they do not learn much while on Zoom. And while we're remote, I mean, as a student perspective, you can cheat. And people aren't learning things, people are cheating, and it's not a good system. But now that we're back to hybrid, I'm spaced out in all of my classes now, so it feels safe, and we're back in the building. And even though we can't be there all the time, 2 days a week is certainly better than none.
Any other questions for our student representative? Okay. Next, we'll go to we already did committee. The interim superintendent's report, we already started with the levy, so.
And that's really was the focus for Sharon and I. I would ask Jen Kuhn to give us an update on the 3rd grade test that just happened. So Jen, if you could jump in and share that with the board, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. First, I'd like to congratulate our third grade staff along with our preschool and kindergarten, first and second grade teachers. While this is a third grade test, we know full well that that education starts with our preschool students, and it's with the support of all those teachers up through the ranks that we're able to get achievement and to increase their achievement throughout the year. Last year, it's not a surprise to know that it was a very challenging experience in that basically our students the last 3 months were very, again, I hate to use the word challenged, but they were challenged with how to learn remotely. And it was also difficult for teachers to continue that educational process. So we know that our third grade students unfortunately didn't get that core education that they typically do for the last quarter of the year. And then we also know that those students tend to go into what we call the summer slide, where either they do not continue their growth or sometimes their development falls back and that they're not practicing those skills. Then we come into the start of a new year and we have challenges with students who are doing online learning, students who have to deal with quarantine, students who have a variety of worries or concerns. So going into the third grade testing this year, I know everybody was very anxious. The test results are back, and the state average for the fall test was 37%. Tiffin City Schools, we scored 40%. When you're looking at just the third grade reading guarantee, Tiffin City Schools, we have 62% of our students who, with the fall test, have met the mark so that they could be promoted onto the fourth grade. So that in itself is very, very exciting news. I know many teachers are probably going to be concerned with that initial number of 40%, but I think it's something that we need to celebrate as they have worked very, very hard. And I know they will continue to do so despite whatever challenges come so that they can continue to help their students grow along the way. If parents are curious about test scores, please know that these are preliminary numbers. We will, over the next several weeks, start to work on getting the reports together, and it's our intention to mail those reports out when the grade cards go out. So parents will get a parent report and most likely an explanation letter to let them know what do those results mean, and if they have further questions, who they can speak to about that. Any of our students who did not meet the third grade reading guarantee, if they're not already on a reading improvement and monitoring plan, it's my recommendation that we go ahead and place them on a reading improvement and monitoring plan so that we can make sure that those students get the necessary supports so that hopefully they can continue to develop and grow. So, any questions?
Yes, Ms. Kuhn. Last week was the sign up for the academy for opting out. What kind of numbers are you seeing for the second semester?
I'm still in the process of crunching those numbers. Having the academy numbers come in at the exact same time as testing was a little difficult to sift through. I do have to say we had 462 families who filled out the survey, but I have to sift back through it to make sure who wants face-to-face, who is asking for Google Classroom, and who in itself wants schools PLP. So that data I'm going through. I should have preliminary numbers tomorrow, and then I will be sharing the breakdown of numbers in my board report on Friday. Also, so that parents are aware, on Friday I will send out an email to them to confirm what their choice was, and then also to let them know if we had enough students for Google Classroom that in fact they will be part of Google Classroom, or we'll have to go with their second choice, which their second choice was either to remain face-to-face or to go continue with schools PLP. So.
And I think for me and the rest of the board, you have our appreciation this year, starting an academy from scratch, doing what you've done, and then at the same time monitoring our existing curriculum, like you were talking about the third grade reading. It's just been phenomenal. And so I think Mr. Woodman earlier said there's exciting possibilities with the academy. in terms of having to recoup some of our students back. So I think you've done a phenomenal job this year. So, and here's to the second semester. So.
Thank you. It wouldn't be possible without the advisors that we have with the Tornado Academy and also the support of the principals in the building. So, thank you.
Mr. Bose, policies you want us to read?
I just have one policy for your consideration. It's a revision of the gifted policy, IGBB. Mrs. Zerm, excuse me, Mrs. Zerm reached out to us. And if you look, I gave this to you in paper form here. If you look at pages 3 and 4, there's some strikeouts. And all we're doing there is to align that with our current course offerings. So it's really minor in terms of revisions. But that is for the first read, and then we'll come back next month for the second read. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Additional items, Mr. Groff? Oh, any additional items?
I think it would be, we want to make sure we're trying to keep everyone. There's been some. Okay, just hang on there. I want to thank Scott and his staff for a lot of things they've been doing over the last few weeks. And I know we've continued to try to look at ways to improve our finances and where we can save dollars. And we continue to do that every single month. And one of the discussions is to eliminate the satellite building in the near future here. In fact, at the end of the year, and move those folks back into the high school. I worked with Mr. Tristler, and I think we have a plan in place to make that happen next school year. And we found a place that we're going to be able to, I guess I'll reconstruct in a sense and make it work to be able to put those that staff and those students back into the building. Just on electric alone, it's a $10,000 annual savings on just that building. So. We also have listened when it comes to possibly relocating the board office or the administrative center. And we have taken a really hard look at Lincoln Elementary. And we feel that that is an option for us. And we're going to continue to pursue that option and look into making that happen also, hopefully by next school year. So those are two options that was going to, at the end of the day, one of those things you maybe have to spend a little money to get them there, but at the end of the day, it'll be money well spent and be future savings down the road. So Scott, thank you, and Greg, and for those who didn't know, the boiler showed up today and over at Noble, and did it get dropped into the hole? That's all I want to know. Okay.
I also would like to thank the maintenance department on that note, because the estimate to remove that boiler, if we paid somebody to do it, was around $12,000. And the only expense that we incurred by doing it was renting a grader from John's Welding coming over and helping us lift it out so we can recycle it. So I do not know how much money we got out of the recycling yet, but it weighed over 14,000.
14,000 pounds worth of scrap steel we took out of the hole, and only putting a 4,200 pound piece of equipment back in. So.
And if the board doesn't disagree in following up to the discussions on, looking at different sites for administrative building, I still like have this month left as president to talk to the Historic Society, invite them, to Historic Trust to make them sure that they understand what's going on. So, but now turning to Mr. Daniels for your report.
Yes, on tonight's board agenda, I have an item to replace the fire escape at the high school. I did have Alveda Construction and Klaus Construction both look at it, and both bids came in. I'm going to recommend that we approve Klaus Construction as the lowest and best bidder, and look forward to that project getting done.
Thank you.
I do have one additional item.
Go ahead.
I would like to thank the students, or the staff, and the administrators, and the board members who donated to our food drive. We were able to provide 108 hams to the Salvation Army, and there was some money left over that they wrote a check just for the food drive for the January and February to help them through the winter.
And thank you for spearheading. I think you were the one driving that, right?
Yes, Pat Smith with Pat Smith's help.
So now that takes us to the opportunity for the public to address the board. If you want to speak to the board, just step up to the microphone, identify yourself and your address, and okay. So seeing nobody running to the podium, we'll go to the next items to adopt the consent agenda. 70.01, approve the minutes from the November regular board meeting. 7:02, approve the treasurer's report for November. 7.03 are the donations and grants as outlined for the district. Next, the Tiffin Middle School, and then the Washington School. Then we have the stipends that are outlined on there. 7.05 supplemental appropriations to the general fund. 7.06 statement of purpose for the budget reports. 7.7 employment as corrected by Ms. Perry. And those are the recommendations for the employment of the following professional staff. As teachers, and I believe that's it on the consent agenda. Anybody want anything pulled out of there? If not, then a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the correction. Motion, Dr. Gay, second.
Second.
Second, McBride. Any discussion?
Does it include the addendum?
Okay, so ask for a friendly amendment then to add 7.07 to the consent agenda. I'll move. Any objection to it? Okay, so the consent agenda as approved with 7.07 and the correction. We already have, so we just need a vote at this point, or do I need a motion to approve the amendment?
The addendum was actually part of 7.0, I mean, 7.07
Right.
is the employment item.
And I said as amended and corrected, okay.
Okay.
So, vote please.
And who moved? Thank you. And who seconded?
Dr. McBride.
Thank you. Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. Now we turn to section 8 with the action items. 801, approve the revised Seneca County Board of DD agreement and additional amended exhibits for the 2020 to 21 school year. Any questions on those?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Widman, second. Second, Dr. Gase. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. 8.02, approve the 20 to 21, 2022 Tiffin Middle School and Columbian curriculum guides as exhibited. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion Woodman, second Dr. Gase. Any discussion?
I got a question. This is a late question. Do we plan on continuing the Tornado Academy? And does it need to be part of these curriculum guides?
That's a great question. It is my understanding that yes, we do intend to continue with the Tornado Academy. However, I would recommend that they not necessarily be part of those curriculum guides, that we perhaps have its own guide because the curriculum is different. And as we're looking through things, we're still considering, is this the best curriculum? So I would be hesitant to bring a guide to you at this time. I do, however, I would like to bring to you a draft of a handbook that I want all parents and students in the academy to have, because there's a great deal of things that we want to make sure are spelled out clearly for parents, and we want to have that resource available to them at all times. So to answer your question, yes,
Good.
We intend to continue. Should we have a guide? Yes, we should.
And and again, kind of off topic, but the Tornado Academy just seems to be doing very good work, and it certainly is something that has merit in staying as part of our offerings long-term post-COVID.
Yeah.
So again, it's probably for a different line item. I apologize. But
Yeah, it is meeting many students' needs. It has challenges in itself, no different than a classroom, in that some students are not engaging in the instructional components of things. And so we're working through that to try to make sure that there's a nice and a smooth transition for those students, as we may be recommending that they go back to a face-to-face learning environment.
Right.
In order to be successful, they really need to be self-motivated, or they need to respond well to motivation coming from an advisor or their parent. So it is a very good fit for some students, but not for all.
as we learned earlier tonight, there's some people that do very well in that environment. So
Yes.
by offering it, it's good. Thank you.
And I guess this is also off topic, but is PLP something that we like? Do we have data on like how the students feel about the specific school we've chosen? Because I was just wondering how, if we think that PLP is a long-term solution to this, or if maybe people don't like it, because I know I have a sibling who did Tornado Academy and opted back into the building and wasn't really a fan of PLP, and I was wondering how other students felt about that.
Trevor, that's a great question. We actually did do a survey on our students to find out what they liked about the program, how they felt it could be improved upon, and dependent upon, actually not dependent upon the curriculum, but what is it that they felt they needed in order to be successful in a remote learning environment. And if you would like, I can share that information at the next board meeting.
I would find that very interesting.
Yes,
Thank you.
I could share that.
Well, and I think from personal experience, Mr. Wigman, it feeds the needs for some students who actually do well with it, and I have a split household, and some that just, they like the classroom. It's a different environment, but I think it's good having that option out there for some of these students that otherwise probably wouldn't have succeeded in class. So, and it helps us recoup some of them and bring them back to our family and our district, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so with those questions, can I have a vote on the curriculum?
And I'm sorry, but may I have who moved and seconded?
I moved it, I think.
You moved in, Dr. Gay seconded.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. And then 9.01, which is the class professionals contract, and that's for the fire escape. Motion, Dr. Gase.
Second.
Second, Mr. Woodman. Any discussion? Thank you, Scotty. We took the tour, and that's something that's needed to be done for years, so. Okay, vote, please.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. Now at items 10:01 is approve the TEA MOU, and that, the first one is allows for changes to teacher coverage so teachers can provide coverage instead of substitutes. Is that correct, Mr. Grubbs?
Yes, it's actually two parts, but I will let Mr. Bose here explain this one because he has it down packed. I messed it up the last time I tried to explain it.
The first one, 10.01, is specific to phys ed classes where maybe a teacher is out. We'll say the middle school where one of the teachers are out because of sickness or illness or whatever the case may be, and we can't fill that position for the sub. So the other teacher is in there covering both classes at the same time. This was actually in the old contract, and for whatever reason, it wasn't brought into the new contract over the summer. So it'd be the same thing that we had last year as well.
And 10.02 is regarding the snow days. In the teacher's contract, in the TEA, there's 5 calamity days that are provided to our staff, and after the 5th calamity day, staff are required to make them up, generally using, say, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, etc. To do so, this MOU would allow us to call anything beyond 5 as a remote learning day and continue with our education as though we're in school, obviously just doing it remotely. And so we appreciate the TEA working with us and allowing this to happen.
Okay, any question? Go ahead, Mr. Blodgett.
So what does that remote mean? Because as a student, there's two necessarily types of remote. The one where you get assignments, the one where you actually Zoom in. So which one would that be?
It's the one you would Zoom. You would follow the schedule that they would put out for you, okay?
Thank you.
And I think we discussed this last year. It allows us to, so if you're a family or educators that, spend money for your vacations or something down the road, that allows you to know that that's actually going to happen. And we know that we have snow days, but we now have the flexibility through this remote learning option to at least maintain our school year. So do you guys want to vote on them together separately? I'll ask for a motion for 10.01 to approve that first one with the substitution. Motion?
I'll move.
Motion, Mr. Woodman, second?
Second.
Second, McBride. Any
It,
discussion?
Brings a question. So it certainly makes sense after the 5 remote learn. Why don't we do that on day 1? I mean, in years past, we didn't have that option. I mean, so we just said, oh, well, you have your 5 days, and then we're going to make them up. Yeah, now I don't understand. Why don't we do it day 1?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's something we can address in the next negotiated agreement. Currently, it's in the contract that they get calamity days, and you'd have to bargain that out right now, and obviously, I don't know that that's going. It could be all the above, yes. Generally, it's because of snow day or. No.
We've had heat before too, I think, or cold, so versus that. But I think you're right, Mr. Woodman. Eventually, that's where it's going.
Should we go back before we approve this then? And talk to them about it?
Again, I'll look over at Melanie. So just off the top of your head there, do you think the union would vote to give up all their calamity days at this point in time?
Absolutely not. No. And we just entered into a 3-year agreement with them, so asking them to reopen is probably going to be difficult. But it's a topic I think that we want to go back to them on, correct? So.
I think it's a future topic for sure. I think for right now, explaining what.
But I think
instead of extending the school year, we can promote it.
And not, let's also, I think, first of all, let's thank our staff and our teachers and our, and just the entire staff for what they've done so far this school year. Many schools have been remote for a long time. Many schools didn't even go into session. Many schools have been hybrid most of the year. Many schools took every Wednesday as a professional learning day, although they're calling it, part of their hybrid plan. Many schools did a lot of things. In our K-5 buildings, 100% of the time, every single day. And if we end up calling a calamity day and them getting a day off because we have 4 inches of snow outside, you know what? I think they deserve it. So kudos to our staff. Kudos to great job to our entire staff who've been dedicated and done a great job this year.
Jim, I totally disagree. We have great staff, but that doesn't mean we don't want to teach. I mean, I think you're combining 2 totally different subjects.
That may be the case, but at the end of the day, I think they signed they passed an MOU saying that they will give up any future calamity days beyond 5 and making them a remote learning day, and we really appreciate them doing that.
I think the reality is we have to accept the fact that we negotiated a 3-year deal. They were in agreement enough to modify to this point, and I think we accept this modification at this point, work with them. We've got future dealings with them, so. But you're right, the trend in the future is ultimately to, eventually I see the other districts doing that, going to something remote now that we have that as an option. But we have to live by the terms of our agreement at this point.
Or you go to an MOU. I mean, that's why you do these things.
They don't have to approve the MOU, and that's the reality. We just had negotiations, started in February. We just concluded them like 3 months ago. We could have brought that up. We didn't. So we signed it. We live by our agreement.
Well, of course we did.
But so I just want to say, as an educator and as a parent, and Jim, I just want to thank you because I think that you made an excellent point, and I think that educators are tired And I think that we have asked them to do things 2 and 3 ways and to be prepared for all of it, also while having their kids at home and while not knowing what the next day holds, and while many of them don't know if they could afford or if their partner or had a job or didn't have a job or dealing with people in their home who were ill. I think that it is, I hope that that there is the opportunity for them to take a much needed, much deserved break and get some rest. And so I really appreciate you saying that right now is not the time to go back and say, like, work through it. I appreciate them coming and saying, you know, after 5 days, we will pivot again and do remote days, because just like Trevor asked, like, what does that mean? It's one more thing to learn. And what we know from the research right now is that students are burnt out, educators are burnt out, families are burnt out, and I think that you made an excellent point. Thank you.
Well, and I think Dr. McBride, unless you're speaking, is, I understand those points, but you have to remember what you said is burnout. Our staff is not only going through a lot, but our parents too. And as a parent, when you get that snow call, because we still have kids in school, you have to find babysitters. You have to make last-minute arrangements. You might have to cancel work. The last thing some of these parents want to do is oversee their kids having to do remote. It just adds to their stress. These last few months have been incredibly stressful for some parents that have had to quit their jobs to help their kids with remote learning. And to some of those parents, hey, we have a snow day. I already took a day off unpaid to watch my kid. Now you want me to oversee this kid doing remote learning for 1 day. What's 1 day going to do when you can just give me a break as a parent for 1 day and let the staff relax? And I'm sure we were all kids at some point. We live for snow days. So it hasn't killed our society before, and we can deal with it. I mean, the idea is we have an MOU that's before us, and we're just asking the vote to approve that and work with the TEA at this point. So any other discussion on the first one? Mr. Blodgett?
Other than the second one there, the option is not to approve it, and then days beyond 5 we will be making up at some point.
Well, and just to piggyback off of the snow day discussion, is, you know, I think that we both make great points here that, you know, we should continue in this route to get more education, or that the teachers need a break. And I think that this is a decision that ultimately needs the input of the teachers themselves. Because when I think about this, I keep getting drawn back to that, is like, you know, do the teachers want to teach on these days, or do they feel overwhelmed that we get behind? Because I think that those are interesting discussions, and I feel like their input would probably be the best one for speaking personally on what I think would help us make a decision on that.
Yep. Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to ask for, Dr. Hoyta, were you saying something, or anyone else? If not, first of all, 10.01, I believe we had a motion already to approve that one. Is that the teacher coverage? Do we have a motion and a second on that, Ms. Perry?
Yes, I have that. Mr.
Okay.
Widman moved and Dr. McBride seconded.
Okay. Vote please on that one.
Mr. Widman,
The motion was for 10 action items.
Oh, and
For both
we
items?
can separate them out. So I'm going to separate them out to 10.01, and then we can do 10.02. Since
You would need a new motion for that.
Okay, then I would ask, you can withdraw your motion, and then we can ask for a new motion to approve 10.01.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll vote on them both together as 10. As moved already originally, vote please.
Mr. Widman,
No.
Dr. McBride,
Yes.
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyta,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes. Okay, now we move to item number 11, and that is .01, to declare the necessity to levy as a tax as proposed. And board members, you have the two options. And Ms. Perry, we would need two separate motions, correct?
Yes, we need a separate motion for
Each one.
each different type of tax, and then for the type, if we want to do different millage or a different term, that would also need a separate motion. And then on the income tax as well. Separate motion for an income tax, separate motion for any percentage that is recommended, any different term or different base.
Okay, I'm going to then move to adopt the resolution declaring it necessary to raise annually the additional sum of $3.5 million for a continuing period of time for the purpose of providing for the current operating expenses of the Tiffin City School District and requesting the tax commissioner for the state of Ohio to determine and certify the income tax based on earned income only that would have had to have been in effect for the current year to produce that sum of money with the intent to submit the question of levying an income tax based on earned income only to the electors as of the election on May 4th, 2021. That is my motion. Can I have a second? Second, Dr. Gase. Any discussion on that motion? Vote, please.
And then they were clarified and then in January.
Yes.
So we're just making a motion today that gets the ball running.
Yes, I do not anticipate, I will tell you right now, I'm not going to vote for both of them in January together. I don't think we're that lucky, so. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no other discussion, then vote, please.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Okay, and does anyone want to make the motion, or do you want me to make the motion on the 6.9 mil? I'll make that motion then for the 6.9 mil continuing. Move to adopt the resolution declaring it necessary to levy an additional 6.9 mil property tax for a continuing period of time for the purpose of current expenses with the intent to submit the question of that additional levy to the electors at an election on May 4th, 2021, and requesting the Seneca County Auditor to certify the total current tax valuation of the Tiffin City School District and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by that additional levy. Can I have a second? Second, Dr. Gase. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Okay, now does any other member want to make any other motion for any different amount, either income tax or mills? If not, then we will move to the... Yes. If you want it considered in January, you have to make that motion now.
Or have a special meeting.
Or have a special meeting between now and then.
It's also something that we could do at the organizational meeting, depending on when that is.
Right, just contact.
But the January meeting is when we should do the resolutions to proceed with any of the resolutions that we have declared a necessity.
And that's when the numbers are final.
We've got two options at this point.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Whatever we decide to proceed with in January.
Yes.
The numbers are final at the January.
Yes, because they will be certified by either the county auditor
And as we
or...
speak right now, we either have a choice of 1% or 6.9 mil, correct?
Correct.
We don't have a 0.75 or 1.25 or 1.5.
I think we should do the
Not unless we do a
0.75.
motion.
I think we should do the 0.75 income tax just to have it as an option.
If you want to do that, Dr. McBride, I'd ask that you make that motion because you can read that whole thing. Go ahead.
I got one question. If we would, as Dr. McBride states, if we want another percent or base or term, do we have to state that at this point?
Yes. Yeah, we need to state specifically
Okay.
the percent, the base, and the term.
Okay, and I'll give you a while to think about it. If anybody wants to make their motion, go feel right ahead.
No, I want to do it. I just don't know which sum that gives me. 'Cause I need to replace it with the sum.
Oh, okay. You look at the chart. Dr. McBride, which percentage are you looking at and which base are you looking at?
The 0.75, 3128.
So you would need an amount.
0.75 on the traditional base?
No, I want earned.
On the earned, the 0.75 on the earned would be $2,600,000.
And would that be a continuing basis or just for a period of time?
Yes.
On this chart here, it looks like it's rate 3.1. Traditional?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the 0.75 on the scenario is a traditional base because that is the nearest equivalent for the amount of money that we're trying to raise.
So it's not going to cover what a 6.9 mil would cover, correct?
On the earned income, no.
Okay, okay, so maybe we don't want to do that.
Yeah, never mind.
Okay. Any other motions? Do you need more time, Dr. Hoyda? No. Okay. All right, so I guess everyone's had their chance, and now we'll move on to section 12.01, and this recommendation comes from the levy committee, the search committee, and Dr. McBride, you're the chair of that committee. Can you explain the recommendation?
Yes, I'd like us to vote to approve the OSBA services agreement for their superintendent search services.
Are you making that motion then?
Absolutely.
And I'll go ahead. Dr. Gase seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Dr. Gase?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Abstain.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. Item 13, we have to set the organizational meeting, so we need to nominate and basically elect well, first I have to set the organizational meeting. And what's the date that we're setting it, Ms. Perry? On January?
I don't know that that's been discussed. We need to do it before the 15th.
If you have calendars, I'm available any day. I have no life.
Typically, I think we do it 2 weeks before what is usually our regular meeting. So it would be the second Tuesday.
Usually do it the second Tuesday, I think.
Which would be January 12th.
At the same time and at the middle school, I believe, too, correct? So I'll recommend.
Let me jump in and just say that that's close to the 15th. If there's bad weather or something happens that doesn't give us, and for some reason we can't meet. I know that sounds unusual, but it's actually
Yeah,
happened
that's
to
my
me in another
question.
district.
They passed that resolution, so if we announce the meeting here and also say that it's Zoom, we could still carry it out by Zoom.
That's true. Yep.
So,
Yeah, so we can do it that way.
okay, so I recommend that we set it for January 15th in the Tiffin Middle School.
January 12th?
January 12th in the Tiffin cafeteria at, what time do you guys, what's your pleasure, 6 o'clock? 6 p.m.
Sure, I think so.
I believe I have a second. Any discussion? Vote,
And
please.
Who was the second from?
Dr. Gase?
And you moved, Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
And then 1302, we have to nominate President Pro Tempore first, and then a Vice President Pro Tempore. So do I have any nominations for Pro Tempore President to run that meeting? Any other nominations? Okay, I'll close nominations then. Vote.
Dr. Gase? Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. Vice President Pro Tem. Again, I need a nomination for Vice President who would serve in the event that I'm not able to do so. Nominations? I nominate Dr. Gase. Any other nominations? Vote, please.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Dr. Gase? Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
And section 14, then opportunity for the public to dialogue with the board. Go ahead.
Carissa Allen, 135 Clinton Avenue. Going back a little bit to your discussion about snow days, I would just like to reiterate as a parent that it's already weighing on me because I have to work Monday and that my girls are going to be home doing remote learning that day. So to have to wake up and deal with that on top of the snow, I think 5 days is nothing that we haven't had, again, like you said, since I was a child and even long before that. So I'm not sure why it's becoming such a sticking point right now tonight. I just don't find that to be very helpful with everything that's going on at this point in time. And I do want to thank the staff, the teachers, the administration, the students. There's issues sometimes, but I know that I can come here, I can talk to people and get them resolved, and I truly do appreciate that. I feel this has been a great decision for me for choosing Tiffin City, because like I said, even though I do live in the district, it was a choice. And so I am very thankful for that. So have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and hopefully a happy and healthy, safe New Year.
Thank you. Any other opportunity to discuss with the board? Okay, section 15, just Merry Christmas to the board, and it's been a tough year. We look forward to 2021. If there's anything any board members want to discuss or highlight, now's your chance to do it. Go ahead, Dr. McBride.
I just want to thank Melanie and Chris. Y'all are always here, and I just appreciate that. Thank you.
And before we go to next year, I just want to also thank the board. For making me president during what has been really a remarkable year. I couldn't have asked for any more challenges than we've had. But, it's taught me how resilient people can be and what this district can really do. And so it's just been an honor to serve this district. And so I thank you guys for that opportunity to do that. And item 16, unless any other discussion, is executive session. Anybody need executive session? If not, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion Gase, second McBride. Vote, please.
Dr. Gase? Yes. Dr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Widman?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyda?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.